When the headless torso of a young black boy was pulled from the River Thames late last year, police here realised they were entering new territory. That territory being the ritual killing of children in religious ceremonies with their roots in Africa. Today, police from all over Europe gathered to discuss what they believe to be an alarming rise of child sacrifice across the continent. Reports of ritual killings are not only surfacing in Britain. Over the past decade, police throughout Europe have been investigating similar incidents linked to African spiritualism in Germany, Italy and Sweden. And only today, 2 more cases have been reported in France and Belgium. Liz McKean now asks if the alleged rise of ritual killings is black magic or a red herring.
This is The Hague, headquarters of the Europe-wide police force Europol. Today's agenda concerns a practice associated with the furthest reaches of the African continent. But police here are saying it's happening closer to home than we may like to think. Dr. Richard Hoskins studies ritualistic killings, in particular the so-called muti murders of young children, whose body parts are used to make medicine. At today's conference, he warned the police that it's something that may be increasing across Europe.
I think it's inevitable that we will see more of these sorts of cases in Europe. Thankfully, they're going to be pretty rare, I think. They happen in Africa. We know about that. They're fairly rare, but with more Africans living in Europe, there are always going to be some deviants, people who deviate, and yes, we're going to see some more cases.
To police in Britain, the phenomenon of ritualistic killings, childhood sacrifices, seemed comfortably remote until last year, when the headless torso of a young boy was dragged from the Thames about here. There was no clue at all as to his identity, but the discovery a couple of miles upriver of a sheet and several candles etched with an African name changed the course of the investigation. Their inquiry took police all the way to South Africa, where there are believed to be several hundred muti killings each year. But however much they've learned, the murder won't be solved until they find out who the young boy was. They've had some high-profile assistance.
If anywhere, even in the remotest village of our continent, there is a family missing a son of that age, please contact the police in London.
Children are targeted because their innocence is believed to make more powerful medicine. In the Thames case, the boy known as Adam had been circumcised, a sign he might have come from West Africa. There have been cases there where children are murdered in the belief that their death will empower the killers.
This is a deviation from African traditional religious belief, just as Satanism is a deviation from Christianity, and it's that much of a deviation. But it's all about empowerment. They've used probably a particular deity, invoked a particular deity, to empower themselves. This killing is an appeasement to this deity, and it's for empowerment. They're drawing power into themselves.
At today's conference, the officer in charge of the Adam case said they still had a long way to go, but he felt they were making progress.
On the forensic side, we've been getting closer to regionalising Adam as well, and possibly coming down to a country, so we know where he was born and where he was brought up. Once we know where that is, we can move in there with the appeals, hopefully identify him, and then find out, following who he is, who killed him and why.
Adam had been well nourished. Tests showed he'd recently been fed cough medicine. Such children are often offered up for sacrifice by their own families, so they're never reported missing. All attempts to solve this killing have been hampered by a lack of hard evidence. So not surprisingly, police are wary about appearing to overreact. They talk about possible ritualistic murders, and senior Met officers have spoken about rumours that such killings may be on the rise. This lack of certainty is leading to fears about a resurgence of old colonial images of Africa as a dark continent. For Mark Sturge of the Evangelical Alliance, one of the most disturbing aspects of the case is that a child can apparently be brought into this country to be murdered. In trying to understand such a crime, he warns against misjudging Africa's very different belief system.
One of the challenges we faced in the West is that we always demand scientific evidence. We want to be able to reason and rationalize everything that happens within our world. And this conference, for example, is seeking to do that. But the fact is that 2/3 of the world don't see things that way. What we tend to do is, the way they see things is that the spiritual encroaches on every part of their daily lives. And we've got to be careful that we don't see that as being harmful and dangerous.
Every year, Valerie Sinnerson's work with children facing trauma takes her to South Africa's townships where Muti killings have taken place. But her work in London has shown that it's not a black-only phenomenon. She says ritualistic murders happen in white communities, though we prefer to ignore it.
I think the fact that the little child was a black child made it easier for the white population to accept that such an awful thing had happened because it looked as if it belonged elsewhere. But in fact, at the clinic, we are seeing people talking about murder and ritual crime within every single religious group, social group that exists. Unfortunately, ritual crime is not a separate offence, and therefore the police are hindered in looking and learning about and evaluating evidence.
Today, as possible new cases were reported in Belgium and France, police at The Hague resolved to start pooling information and resources. They may be short on evidence, but if they are witnessing the start of a spreading problem, they don't want to miss it.